2, 1, and we should be live. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Robbie Coates, who won Megatron.
Yippee!
Yay! Hi, Robbie. And
Much to my own surprise, I have to say.
were you that surprised?
Well, I knew it was. I love the tournaments that Alistair runs because they're
Yeah,
very straight, but they're also great fun.
yeah.
And I think I had a really good list. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up having three very good, quite very serious, but at the same time good fun opponents. So, frankly, that's probably one of the reasons why I won, because it, straight down the middle, no
Yeah,
messing about, none of the little
yeah,
tricks. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. So what we're doing here is we're doing my sort of usual format of a winner's interview. So me and Robbie are going to talk about try to suss out why you won, basically, Robbie. Um, so, do you want to talk us through what you before the event itself, how you sort of read the pack and what that made you think?
Well, I have to say, I've been on a bit of a mission since I started doing bolt action, is that getting an Italian list to win, because I've been out there and I think the past rules have been absolutely dreadful.
Yeah,
Well, the standing rules have anyway. And because I actually knew a lot of people out in Italy, an instructor for the Savoia Cavalry, a brigadier general in the Italian armed forces, and they would send these stories about, how incredibly brave these Italians were during the war. I think they got a lot of bad press. But anyway, organizing for this particular tournament, um, thanks to, and I have to say, it's the case blue rules. I think they've finally come down with a system where you can play competitively. Yeah, I think in the past, the
yeah,
actual basis Italian rules have been dreadful. It's
yeah.
virtually all negative. The Western Desert tried to do that far too complex, but this one's nice and simple.
Mm,
And there is a way that you can actually win with them.
yeah.
And I was,
Potentially, there's even multiple ways. We just haven't seen Italians win that many tournaments,
yeah,
but you
not
did.
any at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
a couple of Italian lists have gone really close. So we've
yeah.
seen a couple of lists, at least in several nationals, that came fairly close. Mostly using the fanatic on M battalion rules from
Yeah.
Case Blue.
Which I
Um,
also used.
yeah. So I think that there's something, at least in that special rule, that really. But we've also seen people who try to use the Alpini move and fire rule, which makes them into Americans more or less. So.
Yeah.
Um, then okay, so you're on a mission to make Italy work,
And it worked.
and it finally did. So reading through the pack, was there anything like that you immediately just felt like I need to do this with my Italians because of the pack?
Not really, to tell the truth. I can work something, a kind of strategy, and that's generally how I play. Is going to work
Mm,
out the basic strategies rather than the individual kind of what I'm going to do to any particular scenario. I thought the last scenario, which is a double envelopment, would be good because I've got a very mobile force. To tell
mm.
the truth, that game actually ended up being probably my worst one, and I nearly threw it all away. But anyway,
And you believe it would have been your best?
but I think the what I had said, okay, well, I want to try within a tournament setting to get something which wins in any situation,
Yeah.
within any of the different scenarios. And the first two scenarios, now I can't remember what they were just now. One was a meeting engagement, the second was sectors. That's right.
Yeah.
I think sectors is usually quite good. If I remember rightly. I'm sure Alice will get back to us and say, no,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that. But anyway, um, so it's not specifically preparing for a particular scenario. It's just saying, look, this is what I want to do. Then work it out with the opponent in front. And it worked quite well. Interestingly, I was fighting against all Germans, so we had a bit of a Axis civil war throughout. I'm not quite sure how it would have gone against others. Russians, certainly, it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a lot of success, I have to say, about against Americans.
Mm.
So I think the main point is that because I was able to use and I had to stick to the case blue army lists.
Yeah, because it
I
was
think that
all
was
theater lists here at Megatron, right? So
that's right.
you pick one from Case Blue. Can you remember which one it was that you took?
Yes, the just the Eighth Army, which is the more
Yeah.
generic one. There is one, for example. I love my cavalry, have to say. You know,
Yeah.
I did other war gaming with knights and things, so I had to have some cavalry in there,
Yeah.
and they do work particularly well
Yeah.
if they're played in a particular way. It's very
Yeah,
quite difficult. You got to get the
it's
right
really
situation.
difficult to get cavalry right. I've been messing around with cavalry now for the last year, and it took me quite a while to get a hang of it. And I don't think I'm very good yet, but I'm getting better. So um, it's difficult, but I believe also, like you do, that there is something really there in the Cavalleria Savoia, but because of the double charging, but you need to be able to set it up. You need to protect them, right?
Precisely, precisely. And what I've done, I'll go over it when I look at the list. I actually
Yeah.
had 2 units of Savoy cavalry and a unit of Cossacks. And the Cossacks were basically, you know, the shield for
Yeah.
these guys. And usually a kind of light reconnaissance vehicle to come in to give them a wee bit of support. And that generally works very well. You've
Mm.
got to, in fact, in the second game that I had to actually sacrifice a bit kind of Queen's Gambit type thing, one of the units, so that the other ones could come on and they wouldn't be shot up, and then they just went through everything else. So, you know, you got to be, you know, they don't last very long,
No,
cavalry.
no, they really
Um,
don't.
but if they do this stuff, you know, in the first game, I said it was a small unit. There's a 7-man cavalry unit went through 6 different of
Wow.
my opponent's units
That's
because it
really
was just
difficult
in the right
to
position.
that's really difficult to come back from as an opponent when you're sitting there and you're having cavalry run down your back line and you're just losing order dice, which means that every successive charge just makes
That's
it
right.
that much harder for you to go first and go on ambush or shoot that cavalry up. Um,
That's right, and it doesn't happen that often.
no,
But simply the threat of it. In fact, that's the second game I had. Simply the threat of that happening kind of pushed my opponent to do certain things, which then let everything else do their stuff as
mm,
well. So it's almost kind of a threat in being rather than and you know the opponents. Oh God, what we're going to do? What we're going to do? And they're not that expensive, to tell the truth. You know, okay,
no,
they're quite small units. You can get a couple of units who can do so much more damage than, you know, your average tank, for example.
yeah,
And they can get about the board a lot more.
mm.
And if you haven't got the terrain, which is the good thing with them, you just dismount them and you've got a veteran unit of infantry there. So, you know, what's not to like, really?
Did you actually dismount them during the weekend?
I didn't, no.
No.
I probably should have at the last game because they got completely wiped out
Oh,
by a couple of howling cows, which only
yeah.
goes to show that you know, the remedy for a lot of horses is a lot of cows. But anyway, but had I done that, it probably. But then that was the double envelopment, so I wanted to get them off the board anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
but they didn't, funnily enough. So I had to get other things off instead.
Right. We will get into a little bit more about what you actually think happened at the table at the individual. But at this point, I think it would be good for the viewers at home to see what it was that you brought. So
Yeah.
if you could share your screen and show us
Here
your
we go.
list.
Here we go. I don't know if can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, so this is it. I don't know if you want to go talking about it, and then I'll kind of
I
react to
can.
what you're on.
Right.
Okay. So there
So
you
we
go.
have a second lieutenant. Did you mount him up on a
Yes, I
horse?
did. He was on a horse. And that worked out really well.
It really works. Yeah.
Because you get shot at by a sniper and he just goes around the house. And
Yes.
something it was a bit of a mistake, I suppose, from the opponent, but he shot at it the last game, and he recce'd off the board and got all his points as well.
You should always, always remember that if someone has something that can escape move, and you are playing double envelopment or single envelopment, don't think about what you're shooting at. Right.
So no, he was great. He was great. Worked very well. And it's a beautiful figures. So have to say, if I can say, grazie Marco. But anyway, yeah.
And then we have the Cavalleria Savoia. So 7-man veterans, love that, mounted, of course. And another Cavalleria Savoia, 7-man mounted, and then the Cossacks that you were using as a sort of a meat shield for the rest. And you've given them anti-tank grenades, which I really like.
Yes.
It's that option of charging a tank. It makes the tanks a little bit weary of you, doesn't it?
Yeah. I did try that, and have to say, I've been watching your videos before. I did actually surround a flak tank with them, and it worked really well. So thank you for that.
It does. Thank you.
They didn't actually. No, they actually did work, but they were a lot more. They're not as good as at charging, but they didn't need to be, and they were really, really good at offering fire support because they can fire from the saddles. So they were more than worth it.
You had 8-man regulars, so you have a little bit of a larger unit here as well, so that they're in line points wise with the Savoia Cavalleria as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I love my own Cossacks.
I've got some beautiful figures as well. But anyway,
yes. Yeah. The Guastatores, of course, you take those. Double flamethrower. Wow, that's an expensive unit. Veterans.
It is. They always destroy something, whatever it is, and it's just kind of worthwhile having them again as a threat. Like the only thing is they tend to be a bit of a fire magnet, just like the cavalry. But then that kind of leaves everything else to do their own thing. You see. So
and it's really good because you have like 3 fire magnets here that all draw the enemy's attention and their fire, which means that your black shirts, which we're going to go to now, can more or less move up as they want to.
Do their stuff, yeah. And they did. And they were, to tell the truth, there's another special rule which isn't given much, which we'll come to in a minute, which is just as good, is that for the case blue, the kind of low-powered anti-tank get to go twice. And that, at the end of the day, was a lot more advantageous than, okay, these guys did get into to fights and they did tend to win it. But that, together with the other ones, so they had the anti-tank rifles and the other things really helped. So there was a synergy. That's why it all worked. You can't just have one bit of it. You need everything.
You need the synergy, apparently. Right. Because I have seen other lists where they really lean into black shirts, like take a lot of black shirt units, large units. Here we have 9-man units, which is a good size, I think. One of them is regular, though. So they're a little bit softer, but not massively so. Sniper team and an anti-tank rifle team, they're leaning into that re-rollable.
That's right. You know, these... I got them as veteran in this particular instance because they just stick about. Okay, they only got one shot, but they just have to get one truck, and if it's got guys in it, then they've more than got their money worth. And they tend to do that. They tend to get something. So as a kind of points getter backer, then they're very good.
Then they're worth it. And then we of course have a flamethrower team. A medium mortar, because everyone takes one of those. I like that you run it the Danish way and not the British way. Inexperienced.
And again, for the same reason, because everyone's firing at everything else. So these tend to be left. And that particular mortar probably killed more than anything else in the whole of the tournament. So Worked very well.
And then we have an anti-tank gun. Is that the one that's versatile? Yeah, it's versatile.
This is that.
Exactly. So you could fire it either or the howitzer or the anti-tank gun.
And that again really worked. Again, it wasn't being shot at, well, a couple of times, but
Yeah.
it's apart from the very last game, I got blew up by a tiger, but but it took out the attention of virtually everything in any case. So it more than got its money worth. And because there's four of them, it tends to survive. I think it got hit a couple of times, but it tended to survive.
Yeah.
And it's a new tournament, the Scottish Nationals. I'm not taking it, and I don't know if it's a bit of a mistake, because again, it just closes down massive areas of the board if it's a clear board. Which goes really well with the cavalry. Again, it's not individual units which are good or bad. It's
the
when
synergy of the
everything goes together.
multiple options here. Yeah. And then we have the L6 with the flamethrower turret, making it into a BA-20, more or less.
Yeah.
The AA truck, I must say, I really like the AA truck with the light autocannon there. It's a good tank choice for the Italians. A Fiat, that is, I guess, for the flamethrower, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And a truck for the Guastatoris.
Yeah.
Withdrawn limber. And that should bring you to 17 order dice, is that right?
That's right, yeah. The horse-drawn, there's a little story behind the horse-drawn limber, is that we had the D-Day replayed, and it survived the whole of D-Day. It was on holiday with the Germans
you should have
at the
bought
time.
it veteran then, because it's
Yeah, well, unfortunately got blown up by the tiger right at the end of this tournament. So a thought for Dobbin anyway.
Yeah. Well, right. So that's dead. Anyways, the only thing I think potentially I would question here is the inclusion of the L6. Did you feel like you needed that one more flamethrower unit?
It certainly got its points back.
Yeah, it often does.
Because I had nothing, and I'm not doing this for the Scottish Nationals. So I'll see. I can come back to you maybe if I don't win a single game. Then
then we'll talk again.
It certainly worked. And again, what it is, they all, because there's I had virtue apart from the anti-tank gun, which was very useful, no real hard anti-tank threats. So I kind of needed something which could potentially be a anti-tank threat. It was kept back a lot. I have to say, in two mind, and I don't know, because I do like the automatic cannons a lot. It was a kind of throw up between the two of them. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I'll come back to you and tell you if it was worthwhile later on.
Yeah, because I mean the autocannons are just so good, but I do understand that you not having that range on your anti-tank. I mean, you do have the fixed anti-tank, right? But the movable, maneuverable range of anti-tank is difficult to get with Italian. So I understand the like why it sort of feels.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so good about this particular scenario, because that's exactly what the Italians had to face in Russia at that period. So for the actual feel of the campaign, I thought these would be some of the problems that they had to face.
Yeah. So of all these units, which do you think was the most deadly during the weekend?
As I said, in the first game, the cavalry really just ripped through everything. Yeah. The second game, they were more a threat, and they did work, but they suffered quite a lot. So as a group, again, it's not individuals, because it's a long time I played chess very badly. So individual units, they don't really mean much in themselves, but when they're going to put together
the combination of
last one, all the cavalry just got completely wiped out.
Yeah.
So they didn't really work. So it's good to have them. I think of all the units, it was either the AA truck
Mm.
or the inexperienced mortar, which worked best.
Right. So we
And
have
I got
now.
that from you.
Yeah. So now we've got a general overview of how you approach building a list. I really like the way you do this. It's the same way that I build most of my list. I make a general sort of plan, not but based on missions of what I want to have happen at the table, how I want my army to work together, and then we go to the table, we see the mission, and then I sort of start deciding. So how, when you approach and you get the mission and you get your table, how do you then plan?
Well, that's the biggest kind of crisis when I was doing these things. I haven't been playing for that long, only about 2 years or so, 2.5 years. And to begin with, I said, "Oh, what on earth do you do now?"
Mm,
Generally, again, I try to fix on a specific strategy. I'm not saying, look, I'm going to go up with a certain unit and do something else, but I said, right, again, very much like chess, if you like, said, right, going to attack on the right flank, left flank, and everything, and put everything possible, all the possible resources into that particular strategy.
yeah.
I did that on the first two games at Megatron. I didn't do that for the last game, and it nearly came all apart.
Mm.
Because I
So
thought,
that
oh,
is a really important thing to keep in mind. I think that you need to lean into your strategy for the game. You need to lean into that
you got to
plan.
go absolutely. If you got a plan and they say, oh, I think I can do something because I can get a couple of cheap units, it's not going to
Mm.
work. Which is precisely what I did. So yeah, stick to your plans. And I have to say, in the local club that we are in, Dwarf. Hi
Mm.
everyone. There's some very experienced players, and the advice that they were giving was absolutely, play to the scenario. And
Always.
that's what I tried to do.
Yeah.
Except I didn't on the last one, but I got away with it,
So
but only just.
right. So you can stop sharing because we're going to talk about the
Okay.
individual games here.
Okay.
Right. So the first game you're at, the mission was meeting engagement. Is that right?
Meeting engagement. Was it meeting engagement? Oh gosh, I can't remember. Meeting engagement sectors and
And then double envelopment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So and there was lots of secondary and everything. So yes, I did
You
exactly
remember
as
what army you were facing?
yes, it was a German. Now, was it Adam or was it Chris? Sorry, I'm not
One of
remembering his
those
name.
two.
I had it written down, but I can't remember. Anyway, but it was a German army.
Mm,
It was it's very, very similar to the type. I do have Germans as well that
yeah.
I would have played with Germans. So it was a well thought out list with a verbal wind and Panzer Shreks
Yeah.
as anti-tanks and everything.
Yeah.
And it kind of fell apart because was it Adam? Gosh, I'm really sorry. But anyway, it just so happened that he had two started off very early, had an outflanking unit, and this one cavalry unit got within direct range of one of his Panzer Shrek, which was behind a house,
Ooh. Yeah.
went through it, got the other one, and then just went through everything else. So, as I
Yeah.
said, the three moves, which is
Yeah.
from the second or the third, I can't remember what, it
And
went through
that
everything.
really made his army fall apart, didn't it?
So yeah, and everything was coming on one flank, and they just went. It's
Yeah.
just at that point there was nothing much to stop it anyway. Which is
Had you
basic.
already planned at that point that you were going to attack on that one flank? Was that
Yes.
something you knew in advance? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And because the other units, the black shirts, represent such a big threat in close combat, then it was very difficult to do anything. You couldn't just come up and try
No.
to compensate anywhere else. So that was, not knowing
One,
how to handle cavalry. Then that
yeah,
was went to my advantage.
yeah, that one glorious charge of the cavalry. Right. Then you went into the second game. At this point, you must have been in the top 50% of the people at Megatron. So
Yeah.
a lot of players who had been successful, and you got matched up with another German army.
That's right, with someone I know very well from my club, Brian. Hi, Brian. Who I played the week before. So he knew the list very well,
Yeah.
just as a kind of a practice match. And this, looked a lot more difficult. It had lots of tanks. But
Mm.
again, what happened, it was the danger in being of the cavalry. So put all the cavalry again on one flank.
Yeah.
But then I had to actually sacrifice it. I said, right, bring it up. I said, oh no, well, and he actually said, look, I have to bring my reinforcements on at that particular time to counter them, and then the rest of them came on and then went through it. It has to be said that another point which I do is make sure that any particular point in on the battlefield, there's no point saying, okay, I've got, I don't know, the cavalry or a tank or something which is going to destroy it, because things go wrong, and they did,
Yeah.
and they do quite often, because it's so you need at least three threats to one particular unit to make sure that one of them goes off. And this, in that particular case, had the Brian's truck with all his engineers came on, and he flamed something else with my poor cavalry. And I did have three different units, and it was they didn't work until the game out. All of them failed their shots.
No.
But luckily, because there was three of them, there was a good chance that I was going to get the first dice on the next game, and they did. So,
Yeah.
but it's the only way that things work out. And that was, again, a common actual strategy from
Yeah.
during the war. You've got to put the fastest with the mostest.
Yes, and
Ulysses
it's
Grant.
it's 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 still a truism for all wars today that you need a 3-1 advantage. You want to break through the enemy lines. That's what you need.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that worked out very well. Again, very interestingly, in the first two games, my luck was absolutely, not particularly good. It was
Okay.
actually a lot better in the last one, which I did a lot worse, which only goes to show it's not luck which is going to win or lose any
No.
particular games. It's how you play it. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, the second game was by far the one I was most happy with, because it kind of
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah. And especially if you're playing against Brian, who you know so well. I mean, it's always really satisfying beating your friends, isn't it?
He's going to get his revenge very quickly, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And then you're in the top third, going into the final game of the day.
Yeah.
And you get, like, for me, my initial thought when I heard you say that you were playing double envelopment was that that would be the perfect mission for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I completely overrated it. There's, I think it was Adam, and he had a tiger, so that was half his force. And oh, easy peasy, I just go around it. And it just didn't work out that way. And he had all these howling cows, which made a complete mess of all my cavalry. And then it became a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
I was exchanging one unit for one unit. So
Ooh, that is always, oh, not good.
yeah, but because I had more, it was a real kind of World War One type
Yeah.
slog, and I had more units than him. So, but he played extremely well, and had it gone on for another turn, then he probably would have got a lot more of his units. Again, he didn't advance because of the potential threat of black shirts and everyone
Yeah.
else. So again, it's not
You could
what.
keep the fight on his side of the table, basically.
Yeah. And then, at the end, I kind of ran off my officer on his horse, went galloping off, and a couple of other very mobile units. So,
Yeah.
but that's what it was all about. But the rest of it, I really thought, oh dear, this is all going west. But the very, very interesting games, all three of them. I think I was quite lucky in the last one because my luck was a lot better on that one, and didn't work out.
Right. So before we sign off, I have two questions left, and the final one here is, what do you think actually decided that you would end up win this tournament? What was the decisive aspects of you winning here?
I think it's really the synergy between all the different units. Each one of them, they're as is right and proper, every single unit, there's a counter to it. And by having the balance, which I did in this case here, generally it worked very well. I think that's really, really important. It's, as I said, I don't usually take quite a powerful anti-tank gun. It worked incredibly well with this because that's precisely what was needed in this particular case. If you get someone who knows how to deal with cavalry, you can say goodbye to them. But that, or you just hide them behind buildings. But then I had another game the other day, and you pummel or the ambush infantry with artillery or light automatic cannons. So it's a matter of everything going together, and it did work. The first, as I said, the first opponent didn't understand how cavalry worked. The second one did, and the third one, can I have to say that was the luckiest game.
Right. So, final question, Robbie, before I let you go and prep for the Scottish Nationals, is what would your advice be to players, newer players who want to go to tournaments and win some games?
Oh, practice. Absolutely. This is, it's a bit of a truism, but absolute practice. But by understanding each of the different, everyone said, well, what's the best thing to do? There is no best way of doing, of picking a list. There is the value for money. That's absolutely correct. But there's also working out a particular list, how it all works together. As I said, the last list that I played against, it worked incredibly well with a tiger, which has taken up half the points of this particular tournament. That's what I quite like about bolt action. It can be extremely flexible. I don't think there is one answer, which is a bit of a get out for me. But by simply understanding how units work together, that is the real kind of formula for success, or at least formula for fun, if not necessarily for success.
Well, it is a formula for success, and at least it did work for you. So congratulations again, and
thank you very much.
Good luck at the Scottish Nationals. Taking your Italians again, I assume?
Yes, I am. I want to, and that's another thing. I've kind of stuck with one nation just now. I do have Germans, I do have Brits as well, but I want to see exactly how they work in different circumstances. I'm about kind of 50% of the way of the different things, so I'd like to try it a little bit more before kind of trying something else. Anyway,
perfect. Right.
Brilliant.
That was it for us today. Good luck, and thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you another time. Cheers.
Hope so. All the best then, Bo. Thanks.